Italian sentence structure. How do you put a sentence together in Italian is the topic of today's lesson. Benvenuti, sono Manu Venditti, il fondatore di Italy Made Easy. I am the founder of Italy Made Easy, the channel that you're watching and that you are using to get started with the Italian language. And today's topic is really important because if you don't know how to structure a sentence, then there's no point learning anything else, right? How does it work in Italian? But most of all, can you handle it? Are you scared that it might be really complicated, really complex? Well, mi dispiace, I'm really sorry, but of course you can handle it. It's actually not very difficult. It's quite similar to English. Now, little disclaimer. At the beginner level, I ask you to trust me that in most cases, the Italian sentence structure is very similar to the English sentence structure, and so I don't want you to overthink it and to over-worry. There will be instances where it kind of diverges from English a little and then a lot when it comes to, sayings and, like common phrases and things like that. But overall, I want you to kind of go with the idea that pretty much similar. And that is because the two languages work with the same idea of subject, verb, object. I eat the apple. A basic sentence has a subject, which, as you know, in Italian can be dropped, but it doesn't mean it's not there. Because then you have a verb that it's conjugated for a subject, so it's the same. And then you have the object, I buy a house. So that's the basic idea. Now, of course, then you have more complex sentences, but even in that case, they tend to kind of follow the same blocks. So subject, verb, object. So let's look at an example. If you're saying, my sister loves music, you have a subject, my sister. So you have two words to have the subject because sister is the noun that you're talking about, but the fact that she's mine and not yours. Then the verb loves, it's conjugated for he or she, like loves. And then the object is music. She loves what? Music. So Italian will do the same. Another example would be the cat eats the carrots. You got cat, subject, eats is the verb, and carrots is the thing that he's eating. So my sister loves music. In Italian, it's going to be quite similar. So mia sorella is the equivalent of my sister. Mia means my and sorella is sister. Now the verb ama is she loves. And then in English you say music, in Italian we say the music. So little nuances that you will learn how to kind of dominate and not worry too much about it. But mia sorella ama la musica. So this one is il gatto mangia la carota. Il gatto, the cat, mangia, eats, la carota, the carrot. So in this case you have the article in English as well, because the cat is eating a specific carrot. In Italian, we tend to have the definite article a bit more often. You will learn about how to say the in Italian very soon, in 3 lessons, I think. Now, it's not always that simple, obviously, but I still want you to believe that it's kind of mostly simple. At times, the structure is quite different, and it's usually the case with questions. The way you ask questions in English can sometimes be very different from the way we structure a sentence, grammatically speaking, in Italian. But other than that, don't stress too much. The main differences. So the adjectives in Italian are usually placed after the noun. You've learned this before. There are times when we can put it before, but overall, take the guideline that you put the adjective after the noun. And so instead of saying the red car, you're going to say la macchina rossa, with rossa being red, and you put it after. So you learned this already. The subject pronoun is often omitted. So in your sentence, we don't need to always have io, tu, lei. Just say it once and be done with it. The best part of the Italian sentence structure, unlike English, the Italian sentence structure is a lot more flexible. Like it's extremely flexible, and you can basically move elements around the sentence and it still works. It might sound a little poetic. You might move the emphasis to something else, but everything is movable within a sentence. As long as you don't break up the blocks. The block is, for example, talking about the cat, il gatto, that's a block that you cannot separate. You can't say the blah, 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 and then after 20 minutes, cat. Same as it. You can't separate those blocks. So, my sister, that's a block. My sister, Francis, that's a block, because I shouldn't say my sister, blah, 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 and then Francis. So the logical idea of not breaking up the blocks is there, but in terms of where you put the adjective, where you put the verb, where you put the time reference, where you put the place reference, like it's very flexible and you'll love it. You will love it. In most cases, you are going to need pretty much the same elements that you need in English. Now, I'm not in any way encouraging that you translate from English to Italian. I want you to start building your sentences in Italian directly with the things that you are learning. You're learning the grammar so that you have a concept of how it's done. You're learning vocabulary so that you can talk about things. And you're learning adjectives so you can talk about and describe the things. And then mostly your immersion is informing everything else. The pronunciation, the intonation, the colloquial sentences, the melody of the sentence, and also it should be informing how sentences are coming together in Italian if you pay attention. So when I say the same elements, I'm referring to if you have an article like a the or an a in English, you can have it in Italian. If you have a preposition like in, for, et, you can have it in Italian. Pretty much it works the same. So it's not a crazily different language, like if you were learning Chinese or Japanese. They're completely different in many ways from English. And then you have to learn as many joining words as you possibly can. I'm going to show you a few, but it's your job to get curious and say, how do I say however? Because that's going to allow you to, instead of having a 3-word sentence, which is fine, over time, you will want to have more complex thoughts. You will want to eventually move on from, I wake up at 5, I brush my teeth, I get dressed, I get in the car, I go to work. You will want to say something a bit more complex, like I wake up at 6 and right after that, I brush my teeth. So that, so all those joining things, they are super useful to sound more, I guess, articulate as a person. So here's one that it's così. Così. It means so. So I do this, so la la la, E. E means and. Very useful to join just even at a basic level. I do this, and I do that, and I do that. So e. E allora, very common. Allora means then. E allora, and then I did that. Or I do that. You don't know the past tense yet. So e allora, very useful. Ma, it means but, however. So for example, mangio la pasta, ma non mangio il riso. Like I eat pasta but I don't eat rice. So, ma, very useful instead of having 2 separate sentences. Poi. Poi means then as in afterwards. So I do this and then afterwards I do that. Perché, very useful. Tricky because it's a question word. You will learn about question words very soon. Perché means why, but it also means because. So if you're saying, I do this because blah, 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 it actually works to join the 2 sentences. Oh, here we have a big, long thought, a big sentence. Stasera mangio al ristorante con mia sorella perché sono stanco e non voglio cucinare. Now we have a bunch of words and verbs that you haven't seen, but look, I want to translate it so that you can see how simple the structure is. Stasera is the word for tonight, this evening. So anytime you want to say tonight or this evening, you get stasera and you start the sentence with that, like in English. Stasera. Mangio. What's that? It's I eat. Now, does it mean I eat? Well, no, it's rendering a future because it's tonight. It's not now, so it's I'll eat. I'm going to eat. But doesn't matter because we're thinking in Italian. Remember? Stasera mangio. Stasera mangio. That's what it means. Al ristorante. Now, that al, you will learn when you study Italian for a bit longer that it's a combination of at the. So in English you say I'll eat at the restaurant, and guess what? We say the same in Italian. That al means at the. Ristorante clearly is the word for restaurant. Con is the word for with. Whenever you do something with somebody else, you're gonna say con, just like in English. Mia sorella, you learned this one, means my sister. So far, nothing is really that different from English. Perché? Because sono stanco. Sono stanco, it's me. I am something. Stanco means tired. So I'm me speaking, because that's a man speaking, because he said stanco. He didn't say stanca. E non voglio cucinare. And non is how we make a negative statement. Now, voglio is a verb volere. Remember what volere means? It means wanting. It's to want. But it's conjugated for I don't want. So non voglio means I don't want, and then cucinare is to cook. And look at that. That cucinare is an infinitive. It's a dictionary entry, and you would do the same in English. I don't want to cook. To cook is a non-conjugated version of to cook. It's just a dictionary entry of to cook. You didn't change it. Perfect. So see why I tell you shouldn't worry too much about structure. Of course, there are more elements that you need, and we're only just getting started. So here's my summary of tips: don't break the blocks. You can move things around, but don't break. Actually, let me show you. I could say, mangio al ristorante con mia sorella stasera, perché sono stanco e non voglio cucinare. You could put stasera somewhere else. You could say things like, now, it would sound a little bit awkward and poetic, but I could say, con mia sorella stasera mangio al ristorante, perché sono stanco. So when would I do that? Well, because somebody misunderstood who I'm eating at the restaurant with, and so I want to say, no, it's with my sister that I'm going out tonight. So Italian sentence structure is super flexible, and like I said, you'll love it. So don't break the blocks. Don't reinstate the subject. So if it's clear that you're talking about I, like io, just say the first time, maybe, if you really must, and don't say it again. If you're talking about Maria, then just keep going, and you don't need to keep saying Maria, Maria, Maria all the time. You can, of course, you can replace Maria with lei, like with she, but you don't even need that if you're not changing subjects, because every verb that you will use will be conjugated in the third person. So we will know that you're still talking about Maria. You don't need to say it all the time. And there's nothing wrong with short sentences. You know, I'm encouraging you to go and explore and learn all those joining words. But the reality is that you are a beginner and you're doing a great job coming here every day to learn a little bit more of how the language works while you're learning your vocabulary and you're doing a ton of immersion. And with this, we are done for today. If you haven't done it yet, go and check out our platform, because it is the best place to learn Italian for English speakers. You will not find a better opportunity to learn and practice the language. Prometto, I promise.